excited to do this presentation for the education industry. And the agenda of what we're going to be doing today, for the next 5 minutes, 10 minutes or so, I'm going to do a quick slide deck just to give you an understanding of why we're putting this together, what are some of the problems that people come to us with, what are they trying to solve for, how K2 does that, and level set all the definitions of the deliverables of what K2 does. Once you do that, I'm going to hand it over to Holly. Holly's going to go through a live demonstration of K2 Black Pearl. And then at the end of this, we're going to go through some Q&A. By all means, please pass your questions in. We will be taking Q&A at the end, giving you guys an opportunity to learn more about K2. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So again, thank you for coming. Why are you here? Why do people come to K2 in the first place, whether it's education or not? Let's start there. So we've been around for about 15 years, and we've boiled it down as much as we could to about 6 key issues as to why people come to K2. Number one, we hear paper, no question. That they have processes that are paper-based, that are being passed from office to office. You're rekeying data into other systems, which take you too much time. That's your manual process right there. Your approval processes are probably email-based. I'm emailing a department or someone asking them to do a task, so that's going to be too slow. And then another enormous one that we have is whether you're education or not, you have tons of systems, data storage, document storage, ERPs, CRMs, whatever it may be. They are siloed. They do not talk to each other. Your employees are rekeying data, or the data is not accurate, and it's way less efficient. So people come to K2 because they need help connecting those together. The IT departments of these organizations, I've never heard of an IT department being bored. Let's just say that. They always have way too much work, and they need to be able to be empowered with a tool to build applications on the fly with low code or no code. Fast, easy, deployable applications for any department that needs an app or an approval process or form quick. And then lastly is more government related. We'll see this a lot, especially in education. They need an audit trail. They're being required to know who did what and when, who took action on this item, where did that document go, at what time. All this gets recorded with K2. So these are some of the main challenges that we'll hear and we try to tackle. Now let's whittle this down a little bit more to education. We've split this up into 2 primary categories of issues or of use cases because we're off of issues now. We have your internal use cases at education and your external. Not every company has this. Most of it's internal with operations. But with education, you have your administrative department and all those departments inside of that. But then you also have your students, your faculty, your parents that interact with you. That, let's say they want to enroll for a class or a room and board. Where do I go get that form? The data that I put on that form, where does that data go? Who receives that data? Who gets tasked to do something with that data? Ultimately, what happens is I go on your website, I fill out a form, and someone gets an email to task that. And that email gets lost. It takes anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks. You're going to see with some of our case studies. What we're going to be doing today mostly is around student enrollment. If you want to talk to us further about other use cases, by all means, reach out to us. We will help. Internally, though, we can help any organization with these. Budget requests, grant applications, new hire onboarding, enormous use case. If you have SQL database, if you have Active Directory, and just as examples, maybe you have SharePoint, and you have a new hire that comes on board, how do you put a task in for IT, for HR, for everyone to get the proper paperwork in place? Who's managing that, and where does that data go? So those are the internal and external pieces that we try to aim to help with. So I want to go over 2 case studies. The first one is Leicester College. They've been using K2 for a while. When they came to us, they had a very specific use case that they wanted to test. It was their parking applications. So students and faculty would come to their administrative building. They would take a piece of paper, fill it out, request parking, and then pay at a later date. This would take them about 2 weeks to process. And they'd have to have someone get that piece of paper, go rekey that data into SharePoint, so that would take time, plus there's errors in that, plus you don't know if the inventory matches correctly in terms of what parking spots are available. So it was just a problem. It took too much time, and the data was inaccurate. So they came to K2, tested it. We whittled it down to 2 days. It went from 2-week application of approval process for that parking spot to 2 days with K2, because they would go to a web portal, fill out a form, that data would go in 5, 6 different directions. It would ping the correct people based on what was put on that form, and then that person would get a task and send out the proper paperwork for electronic signature or getting payment. So it worked out really well, but you could see the ROI at the bottom over, because they've expanded other departments, other use cases, over 1,100 hours of time saved up with K2. So they're doing well with K2. DPU University is probably our other really strong story in terms of education. So they really focused on the internal use case. They had 3 use cases that they wanted to tackle. They wanted they wanted the purchase request process, budget approval, and leave applications. They came to us with those very specific applications and said, prove to us that you can make this with K2. And so we did, and they actually had the exact same time cost. It went down from 2 weeks to 2 days. It's kind of funny how both of those had those exact same ones. But what happened to them, they were so happy with the product because it went from, again, paper to a slow email task assignment to an automated process, that they've expanded from 3 to 100 self-made apps being used by DPU across all departments. So it doesn't just have to be internal, it doesn't have to be just external as well. Think of it as any department that has a use case, a form, and a process that they want made. They can go to the team that handles K2. They can make it for them in under a day to 2 days. And instead of buying a new software, you have an application ready to go. So last thing before I hand it over to Holly to talk about what our product does is just ultimately we know what the problem is, both at a high level and educational. We have some customer stories showing you some proof of who uses us and why. But ultimately, what do we deliver? What do we try to do for you long term? So we break it down into 3 things. Number 1, instead of you buying new software every single time a new problem comes up, jacking up your cost and jacking up the time it takes to learn these, why don't you just buy one that allows you to build your own applications? Okay, there's low code, a quick deployment of these apps that you can rely on your internal team to build custom workflow and forms and connections into your databases. Second, you got to run quicker, both from a speed perspective, get more cost effective, get rid of the paper, become more compliant. So we're going to try to help you run more efficiently. And that's with any software that you try to buy, but essentially we're going to be the ones that want to go expand just from one use case, right? We want to hit every single department and every single type of use case. And then lastly, and probably the most importantly, is the long term, the future proofing. What do I mean by future proofing? We know over 1 to 5 years, maybe even more, you're going to be switching out of software. You're going to be buying one software, ripping on another one, migrating from SharePoint 2013 to 2010 to 13, Prime Online, etc. But the idea is we're the platform. Okay, we're the spot that when you sign in every day at your computer, you go into your task manager at K2, and all your other systems are plugged into us. The other software that you purchase and buy over time, they plug into us. We're the ones that are flexible with you. You don't want to have to rip and replace this. So we've worked really hard to stay flexible from having an open API, both a REST and a web service broker that is flexible to the systems that you purchase and you invest in over time. Okay, so with that, I want to go into basically the main areas of how the product operates. So I'm going to go and hand it over to Holly. Holly's going to go over a couple more slides here to talk about how K2 operates, and then we're going to go into the live demo. So Holly, are you there?
I am, Alex. Thank you so much. Well, as Alex mentioned, we're going to get into that live demo here in just a moment. But before we do that, I wanted to go through some of the main components that make up the K2 platform so you have a little bit of an overview of what you're going to see in the demo itself. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about our workflow engine. So workflow is really kind of the bread and butter of the K2 business process application and really helps you kind of automate your processes from start to finish, whether that's integrating data from multiple different systems or kind of sending tasks from person to person throughout your organization. K2 provides that workflow engine that really allows you to automate those processes. All of this is done with little to no code using visual drag and drop designers. And all of your processes and all of your pieces of your process are reusable across your applications. So if you set up a particular step or group of steps that you want to use in multiple different applications, you can easily do that because of the reusability and the flexibility that K2 provides with our workflow platform. In terms of our forms capabilities, we have something called Smart Forms. It's basically our forms technology, and it really gives you the ability to create all of the user interfaces that you need for your applications. This is done, again, with kind of browser-based visual drag and drop designers, and really gives you the ability to not only set up forms to capture information, but you can also use our Smart Forms to surface information from your different systems. And this can be kind of across one system, multiple systems, anything that you have in your organization today. All of that information can be surfaced up through your Smart Forms. One of the key things with our Smart Forms technology is the ease that you can build a form once, your interfaces once, and then have them be accessible across any different device, whether you're sitting at your desk or maybe you have users that are often on the go and need to access their forms, their applications on a mobile device or on a tablet. All of that's very easy to set up with our forms technology, again, without the need for writing a lot of excessive code, not even JavaScript. The other thing that we provide in our Smart Forms platform is lots of built-in logic and kind of data validation, and you'll see a lot of this in the demonstration as I go through our course registration application. In addition, one of the core things that make up our business process platform is, as Alex mentioned, that ability to really reach into all of your data sources that you have in your organization today to pull out that information and use it as part of your applications. And that piece of our platform is called Smart Objects. And it's really giving you the ability to surface that data in any of your systems, whether you use something like SharePoint or SAP, or maybe something like Dropbox or Box to kind of keep track of all of your content. All of that is easily accessible through configurable connectors that we have as part of our application. And if there's something that we don't have kind of out of the box that's maybe custom to your organization, we have the ability to integrate with all of those as well with our REST or web services brokers that we provide, as well as an easily extensible API that you can use. We'll talk a little bit more about how you can surface up some of that data into your forms when we go through the demo as well. One of the key things with our Smart Objects technology that really differentiates us from other applications is our way of kind of handling that data. We're never caching that data as part of the K2 application. We're actually reaching back to your line of business systems in a real-time connection so that all the data that you have in your organization stays in its system of record, but we are able to access it and pull it up in real time and surface that into our forms or as part of our workflows. Really gives you that nice flexibility to ensure that your data is secure, but also that you're providing your end users with kind of the latest and greatest information so that they can easily make the most appropriate decisions. Just really quick, wanted to mention one of the things that is relatively new as part of our platform is our Smart Starters. Now these are pre-configured kind of mini applications that we provide. We've put together several different Smart Starters based on some of the most common applications that our customers use us for. And they really give you the ability to kind of kickstart your application creation. You can take one of our Smart Starters, deploy it into your environment, and then customize it to suit your specific organization's needs. So it really gives you a way to easily get up and running very quickly with K2. On the user side of things, so actually using the application, there's a couple of key things that I wanted to point out before we get into the demo. First of all, as I mentioned, all of our smart forms are responsive, so they will show up just as easily if you're on a desktop or on a mobile device. But then we also have a mobile application that provides you with your task list on the go. So any task that is assigned to you across any of your K2 applications will come directly to your mobile phone, and you're able to take those tasks and action them directly from your mobile. So no longer do you have to worry about people who are maybe traveling or out of the office for the day. They can still access their applications and their tasks directly from their mobile phone. For those people who are not traveling, are not using their mobile, we also have a really nice work desk that's available through any browser that provides you with access to not only all of your tasks, so a nice kind of one-stop shop to get access to all of your tasks, but also gives you the ability to surface up all of the internal applications that you have in your organization so people can access them very easily. It's basically a portal to get to all of your K2 applications, and I'll show you that here in just a minute. Finally, one of the things that's important to many of our customers is really being able to get insights and visibility into metrics and KPIs around your processes. And we provide a couple of ways that you can do that through K2. One is with our Smart Forms technology. Gives you the ability to really build out customized reporting dashboards that you can use to report on things like workflow metrics. How many instances of a workflow have been kicked off in a certain period of time? How long is it taking for your users to approve a particular task? But you also have all of that line of business data that can surface up into reports as well, so that you can really build out rich reporting dashboards that show you your workflow metrics, but also bring in that line of business data as well. And we'll see an example of that in the demo. We're also introducing integration with third-party reporting tools like Power BI and Tableau to give you even more ability to customize those reports, make really visual, nice-looking reporting dashboards for your users. All right, so that's just a kind of quick overview of some of the key components you're going to see through the demo, but let's go ahead and switch over to the demo itself so we can see K2 in action. All right, I'm just switching over to my machine so we can get started here. All right, there we go. Okay. So what I have here is a course registration, student registration form. First thing to know about this is available just via a browser. It can be surfaced up in any particular way that you want that's specific to your organization. Whether this is something that you surface up as part of your student portal or have it available in a different way, any of that can be handled through K2, even if it's something where you need to set up something like anonymous access if you don't have users logging in, which is typical of a student registration application. Other thing to mention here is that all of our forms are completely customizable in terms of look and feel. So you can do things like set up personalization to your particular organization with something like a logo or with specific colors that meet your organization's needs. Very easy to do all through our visual designers. So let's go ahead and fill out this form. I'm acting as a student who wants to register for a course that will then have many classes that I'll be taking for this particular semester. Now, I'm sure none of you want to see me typing in all of this information, so I have this little demo info button here that will auto-populate that information for me for demo purposes. So first of all, one of the key things you'll start to see here is on your form, you may start to see information that is not accurate, that we have validation on to ensure that we're getting the absolute correct information here. So in this case, I'm over on this email address. We see that we are getting an invalid email address provided information, and that is because I have missed the .com at the end of this. So definitely something that is very easy to do to set up in terms of kind of real-time data validation on your forms to make sure that all of the information that you're capturing here is correct and is going to work farther down the road in your processes. So some of the other kind of data validation things that we can do here is if fields are kind of required that you need to put in, you can do a check once the form is actually submitted to make sure that all of the required fields have been populated. So in this case, course name is one of those that are populated. If I forget to put that in and go ahead and hit apply, it's going to give me a validation warning right away. This is telling me, oh, the course name wasn't populated. You need to go back in and fill that in. So just another nice way to kind of validate that all of your information is populating properly. So let's go ahead and pick that business management course. And what's going to happen here is as I picked that business management, additional fields are going to show up on the bottom of the form. Now first, this information here is the specific details of the course. What are the subjects that I'm going to be taking in this particular course, and what semester do these subjects fall into? So for business management, I'm going to be taking accounting, principles of marketing, a communications class, and computing, all within that fall semester. In addition, you're going to see information about the course fee structure. So for business management, what are the tuition fees? What are the exam fees? What's the total amount that I'm going to be charged to take these classes? Now, these two sections of information are something that's being pulled from our existing database of course information. Very easy to kind of surface that up to give your students a little bit extra information as they're filling out their registration forms. All right, so I am happy with this. I'm going to go ahead and register for this course. I'll go ahead and hit apply. And there's now a notification saying that my registration has been submitted, and I will be getting some more information shortly. Now, at this point, as soon as that form has been submitted, we're kicking off a workflow. All of our course registrations need to be reviewed and approved by our enrollment officer. So as this gets submitted, a task is then going to be sent over to our enrollment officer. So let's take a look at what that looks like for him. I'll go ahead and close out of this and grab my, just give me 1 second. All right. Okay. So the first thing we see here from our enrollment officer's standpoint is that work desk that I mentioned. Now this is kind of that one-stop shop where our enrollment officer has access to all the tasks that have been assigned to him, but also all of the applications that he has available to him from an internal perspective. So if he needs to put in a leave request or an expense claim, he's able to access all of that information right from this interface. But let's go ahead and refresh our work list. And we see here that we now have a task assigned to us for that approval of our application. So a couple of things that we have access to right from this interface right away. First is the idea that we can open the form. So if we want to look at information specifically about the student who is enrolling, we can open the form, which we will do in just a minute. But you'll also see here that we have surfaced up directly from this interface 2 different task actions that we can take, approved and declined. Now this is something that we set up previously in the workflow for this task. The enrollment officer is going to either approve the registration or he's going to decline the registration. So he can do that right directly from here if he wants to and if it makes sense for that application. It's all completely customizable and configurable per your specific organization's needs. The other thing we provide is a view flow, which is kind of a real-time report to show you exactly what step you're on in the workflow, and gives you a really nice way to visually see all the steps that are involved in the workflow. And we also have the ability to do things like redirect this particular task to another person. Perhaps I'm not the enrollment officer for the business management courses. I want to send it to my colleague. So I can easily do that from here, being able to search across my organization for the appropriate person. I can also set up the task to pause. Maybe I need a little bit more information, so I need to pause this task for a little bit while I do that research. I can absolutely do that from here as well. Lots of different options that are completely customizable as part of this work list really give your end users flexibility to easily get all of their work done in one central location. But for now, let's go ahead and open that form. And you'll see here that at the top, all of the information is exactly what we posted from that original student submission. So we have all of the students' information. And then down here, you can see that he's selected business management, but we want to make sure that there's actually enough spots in the business management course before we approve or decline the registration. So that's, again, information that we are pulling in directly from our courses database to really give the enrollment officer all the information he may need to approve or decline the registration. So in this case, we see that there are only three students enrolled in this particular course, plenty of space, so we'll go ahead and approve this guy. And again, at this point, that action has been taken on the workflow, and so the workflow can continue on and complete. Completing the workflow includes him updating the student with some additional status information, and then passing all of this information on to the finance department, who will then invoice the student with the appropriate dollar amount based on what we saw in the original course description. You can see I've already gotten that email saying that my registration has been approved. So we'll go ahead and click OK here. Now, one of the other things that I mentioned previously was the idea of being able to report on all of your information. So let's take a look at what our reports look like. Now, I'm going to refresh this really quick so we get the latest and greatest information. But what we've done here is just created a very simple, quick reporting dashboard that gives us insight into a couple of different things. First, we can see all of the enrollments that have happened for this particular week. And you can see that it's been broken down by day. Obviously, Thursday is a very popular day for student enrollment here at Denali Tech. So we can easily see that. We can also see things around the total enrollments for this year. All of this based on all of the instances of that course registration approval workflow that has been kicked off. As I mentioned, you can combine all of those workflow metrics with line of business data as well. So what you'll see here for the rest of this report is that we're really bringing in that line of business data from our courses database. So first of all, we can see all of the current enrollments for all of the courses that are going to be happening for our fall semester. So bookkeeping, it doesn't seem to be very popular this year, but business management certainly has several different students enrolled for the fall semester. If we look down at available courses, we can see information about all of the courses that our school is providing for the entire year. And if I click into business management, for example, I can come in here and see exactly who is enrolled in that class. So we can see that Lucas, Janet, Joseph, and our newest student, James, who was the student who just registered, are all enrolled in our course. So it really gives you that kind of nice one-stop shop visibility into all of your applications, in this case our course registration application, but gives you the flexibility to set up reports easily with smart forms that can span one single application like we see with this dashboard, or multiple applications across your entire organization if you have multiple different applications running at one time. So with this, that's just a very quick intro into a sample course registration application. I've kind of gone through all of the key components. So Alex, I think I'll hand it back over to you and we can get some questions going.
Yeah, absolutely, and thank you, Holly. Hopefully you guys can hear me at this point. So first of all, we do have a few questions already in here. Actually, one I got before you exit the demonstration portion was someone wanted to see the visual. Are you able to see the visual workflow of what you just did, or is that possible?
Sure. Yeah. Let me. Sorry, I just stopped.
No. I know it's no worries.
Share.
While we're
okay.
yeah, while we're waiting for that. Yeah, while we're waiting for that. Oh, so do you have a chance? So I think the question was they want to be able to see how you can actually see the workflow from what started to finish, and where you could see where it got stuck from that visual standpoint.
Sure. So I don't have another college application task in here, but I do have this expense claim approval task. It's going to look basically exactly the same. So we'll open this view flow here so you can see what it looks like. It's really just going to give you that visual representation of what the process looks like. So again, this is for that expense claim task that I had in my work list. But you can see that there are several steps taken. There's that manager approval step. And I don't know how well it's showing up here. You can see some of the steps have kind of a green tint to them, as well as the lines here. Those are all of the steps that have already been done. You can see any of the red lines here are paths that were not taken. And then, again, I don't know how well you can see it. There's a blue tint to this finance processing. That's the step that we're currently on. So you can kind of get an idea of where it is in the process. And you can then drill into each of those steps and see, for example, on this finance processing step, who has it been assigned to? You can see here it's assigned to the entire finance department. And wow, it's been sitting out here for several months. So we need to talk to the finance department to figure out what's going on. But just gives you that kind of nice visual overview of what the process looks like.
Perfect. Thank you. And I think a follow-up question to that is, well, twofold. So number one, I think it was part of that first question, does this update live? So if someone takes an action on it, does this update so I can check it at any time? And then the second part to that question, does K2, can you have child workflows work with a parent workflow? So if something triggers in the parent workflow, can that trigger off a child workflow as this one goes?
Yes, absolutely. So let me jump back over here, and I will mark this as processed. And what we should see as the workflow updates here is that we'll see the view flow actually update with real-time information. If it will.
I'll probably give it a second to load. And I think
Yep,
I just got another one.
Just a second.
I just got another one while that's loading is, let's see, can workflow change a task based on date expiration or dollar amount, for example?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So going back to our expense claim example, just to kind of keep with that, you can do things like, depending on the total amount of the expense claim, maybe if it's over $5,000, you need to route it to a secondary approval. You can absolutely do that as part of the workflow based on information that's coming in from that form that you submit to initially kick off the workflow, or any line of business data that you may have. And I apologize, Alex, I'm not sure why this is no longer loading.
No, no worries. Listen, it's not a demo unless if something freezes up a little bit.
That's right.
So, now, moving to, and I have some questions regarding integrations. First one, just in general, is what are some of the out-of-the-box connectors? Obviously, we've talked about SharePoint, SQL database, Active Directory, but what are some of the out-of-box connectors that we have that can pass data in and out of K2 to that system? And then also, if we don't have an out-of-the-box connector, how can we connect our legacy software if you do not have an out-of-the-box connector? Is essentially what it's saying.
Sure. So we have several out-of-the-box connectors that come with K2. As we've mentioned previously, SharePoint, SQL database. We also have Oracle connectors, SAP connectors. I think I had mentioned previously, if you use content store applications like Box or Dropbox, we have connectors for those as well. But for those systems that we may not have out-of-the-box connectors for, we do provide brokers for REST services and web services so that you can kind of build your own integration points using our broker technology so that you can easily integrate any of your legacy systems, basically as long as it has an API that you can use to connect into. We can connect in and get that line of business data out.
Perfect. Okay, now I have two questions from two different people that say pretty much the same thing. Have we done any integration with PeopleSoft or Oracle Solutions ERP with any other colleges? And then the second one is Oracle Database supported as a smart object? I don't know if I quite understand that second one.
I'll answer the first or the second one first.
Okay.
Yes, Oracle databases are supported. We do have an Oracle broker directly for Oracle databases, so you can pull out your data from an Oracle database just like you can with SQL Server. In this particular example, we were using SQL, but Oracle would be the same. And then in terms of PeopleSoft, yes, I know we have done integration with PeopleSoft in the past. I did not work on either of those projects, so I don't have a lot of the details, but we can certainly get more detail for you if you need it for sure. But we definitely did it. We're able to kind of get that information out and surface it up. I believe it was mostly on a workflow-specific project, but it would be the same for forms as well.
Perfect. Now, another question that just came in is how long does it take an app developer, in your experience, an app developer to get proficient with K2 in general? What would you say? I guess that depends on how many use cases and what it is, but in your experience, how long does it take to get someone up and running?
It does kind of depend on what your use cases are. We typically suggest that you start with a relatively well-defined process so that it's a little bit easier. Really has nothing to do with the K2 software itself, but just a well-defined process makes it a little easier to understand what the automation points are. So we do provide training with all of our K2 software to really get you up to speed very quickly, which I believe that's just a couple 2 or 3 day training that is kind of our core training that will get you up to speed. But one of the things that I also mentioned earlier is our Smart Starters. So all of our Smart Starters kind of cover very common scenarios, things like leave request, expense claim, or even something like a document approval or an item approval, similar to what we did with our student registration, that you could then easily customize. And those are our Smart Starters are really built to get you up and running very quickly. It literally takes a couple of minutes to deploy that into your environment, and from there, a couple of quick customizations to ensure that the tasks are being sent to the right people, and you can deploy and be ready to go within a day or two. If you're building something from scratch, it's going to take a little bit longer just to build out all of those components, but can be relatively quick to get up to speed. Certainly with our main components and with our training, it doesn't take months and months of training and understanding to be proficient to build out your first app or two.
Great. Now, by the way, we are getting a lot of questions rolling in, which is great. Love that there's a lot of curiosity, so we're going to do our best to answer all of these. If there's more specific questions about integrations to your own software, I'm going to, at the last slide, I'll give you my contact information. We'll have people ready to go to do more direct phone calls with you guys. So I'm going to try to do more of the generic ones that apply to everyone. Another one that just came in, can the validation process be based on database lookups rather than just standard HTML validations?
Yes, absolutely. So we have something called inline functions, which is our business logic framework that really allows you to build out granular rules that you can use on your forms and your workflow. And all of that framework provides you with access to not only the form data that you may have access to and kind of some of our standard form validation capabilities, but you can also go in and do lookups on data that are in your line of business systems, set up calculations to figure, to determine certain things. Like, for example, on that first form when we submitted our registration, we have that birth date in there that the person needs to put in. You could put in logic to look up, maybe you have a certain age requirement on your students need to be a certain age. You can do a lookup on the database that has that information and use that to build out validations. Absolutely.
I am getting 2 questions about pricing. I will address that at the last slide here. I think the last one I want to address, because also I want to give you guys some time back here. The data that populated your form, did that come directly from your database? If so, when you updated the invalid email address, is that written back to that database? Good question.
That is a good question. So my demo info button, it's just the way it works is once you click on that button, I have some hard-coded data to just auto-populate just for demo purposes only. So I specifically put in that email was incorrect. If you had a system where you already had students in an environment and they log into a system, you can absolutely set up your forms to kind of auto-populate with that information. And then if the student made any changes, like for example, if there was a typo in that particular email, yes, it would absolutely write back to whatever data source it was coming from. So that's probably one of the things that I failed to mention earlier. With our Smart Objects technology, it's not just pulling data out of your data sources, but there's a two-way connection. So It's surfacing information, kind of reading that information out of the data source, but then if there's anything that needs to be updated or if a new record needs to be created or whatever it may be, we can write back to those systems as well.
Great. I think last tech one I have, because we will not be able to get to all of these, but again, I will respond to everyone either via email or I'll give you my contact as well. We'll talk after. Can task actions be completed without logging into the K2 interface, for example, via email?
Yes, so that's one of the things we didn't get a chance to talk about. We do have a capability called Smart Actions, which will basically allow you to send an email when a task is assigned to a person. So they will get an email and they can then easily just reply back with their action. So in this case, it's approved or declined. The person would be able to just get an email and reply back with approved, and it would action the task behind the scenes on the server, and the workflow process would continue on. Absolutely.
Perfect. Okay, for all the other questions, there's a few more that are left that are not answered. They're a little more specific to legacy software. Here, I'm going to go ahead and just go to this kind of last slide here. Hopefully you guys can see that slide. Okay, so first of all, I know there's a lot of questions we're going to get to at the end that are more, again, towards your specific use case. Please reach out to me either directly or sales@k2.com. If it's more technical and either Holly or someone here needs to do it, I will direct you to it, but I want to make sure that everyone gets a chance to contact us. If you guys also want one-on-one demonstrations to your particular use case where we can build something more custom out, absolutely, we highly recommend it. From the sales side, from the pricing side. So we have essentially two products. One is an on-prem product, one's an online product. The on-prem product is the one that we showed you guys today called K2 Black Pearl. By far the more powerful, mature product. The other one's called K2 Appit, and that one's an online product meant for SharePoint only. It can connect to other data sources, but it has to live off SharePoint. Both great services. One's an on-prem, so you're going to buy it up front. It's a perpetual software. The other one's subscription-based, so it'll be a little bit cheaper. But ultimately, that is the pricing and packaging model. If you want to actually get quoted directly in terms of we will look at your users, how many production servers you would need if you want it on-prem, or just on the other piece of the model, sorry, that jump around a little bit, but that Holly got asked about how can you get someone up and running, what's the average time. A lot of our model has to do with the services that we offer and the training. We have an onboarding, some training courses, and then we'll do some consulting, and that's all packaged in. So it just depends, who's learning this. Are they technical? Do they have a technical background, or do they have a business background? And are we going to do in person or online? So that also goes into the pricing model as well. So by all means, if you do want to take this further, contact me directly. I will be happy to ask the questions I need to know to order to give you some basic quotes. Or if it's not in my region, I'll make sure you get to the proper person. So I think that's it I want to go over for now. I'm going to give you guys 10 minutes back for the rest of your day. Holly, thank you again for joining us today and doing that demonstration. And thank you everyone for joining us. I will be sending out a blast email to all of you with the recording. So you will all have a recording to reference if you want to go back and look at this. My information's right there, alexg@k2.com. Feel free to email me directly if you want to continue the conversation. My phone number right there, and I will make sure to respond to you by end of today. And any of the questions I did not answer, I will also email you directly and get you some answers by end of the day. So with that, thank you again for joining us. Holly, thank you for your presentation, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.